Even the country's oldest Latino civil rights group came out against it, yet AOC keeps defending it, saying gender is fluid, language is fluid. Yes, and Latino voters are fluid. Redress the past, or reach out to the gettable white voter who says, you know what, I'd like a shot at getting in the pot business. But to do that, our entire audience.
Many people assumed the label would instantly be embraced across the community, but the reaction turned out very differently. Instead of welcoming it, many simply laughed, shrugged it off, and rejected it outright. Yet AOC and her allies still seem attached to the term as if it were some rare political collectible. At the same time, some have quietly tried to pretend the term was never pushed in the first place. Bill Maher, however, wasn't willing to accept that kind of historical rewrite. On his show, he openly called out what he saw as the absurdity of the situation and didn't hold back from criticizing it.
Last week, an 85% Latino congressional district on the border with Mexico, which had always voted heavily Democratic, flipped to the red team. And the campaign manager for the losing Democrat said, "We gave up a reliably Democratic congressional seat for no reason at all. We deserve to know why." Well, aside from your terrible attitude, I'm going to tell you why. Because these voters stopped seeing your candidate as
During the election
lawyer.
season, many Democrats believed victory was practically guaranteed. They were already celebrating and acting as if the outcome had been decided. But the results surprised them. Donald Trump, the same candidate critics said had almost no chance, still managed to capture seats in areas many believed were completely secure. Some voters felt the politicians who claimed to represent them were no longer standing up for their concerns, and that frustration pushed many of them toward Trump instead.
The message to you was, I'm an American now. I'm here. Be my lawyer, not the lawyer for the migrants showing up in my backyard. Every month I see a new poll reporting how much Latinos despise the woke term Latinx. It's about as popular with them as a reboot of Speedy Gonzales.
Critics argue that ignoring core supporters while focusing heavily on identity politics can weaken long-term loyalty among voters. The controversy grew even larger when the term Latinx started appearing more frequently in political conversations. Many Hispanic voters openly rejected the label and said it didn't reflect how they identified themselves. Poll after poll showed skepticism toward the term, yet some politicians continued using it as if it demonstrated cultural awareness.
Even the country's oldest Latino civil rights group came out against it, yet AOC keeps defending it, saying gender is fluid, language is fluid. Yes, and Latino voters are fluid.
Despite the backlash, AOC has continued to defend the term. Supporters say she uses it because it resonates with certain activist groups and helps energize her political base. She often presents herself as a strong Bronx-raised voice for everyday people, and that image has become a major part of her political story. Critics, however, argue that the branding sometimes feels more like campaign messaging than a full picture of her background and the communities she speaks about.
And more of them now than ever are identifying as Republican. So are Asian Americans, whose support for Democrats is down 16 points since the last election. A lot of that is because, in the name of achieving equity in schools, Democrats in deep blue cities have made it a mission to eliminate the advanced programs at which Asian kids excel. Asian parents said, okay, I wish all kids well, not a racist, but I need someone who acts like my lawyer.
Education policy has also become a major topic of debate. Some critics believe that removing programs designed for high-performing students could unintentionally lower academic standards. They argue that when clear examples of excellence disappear, students may lose motivation to push themselves further. Over time, this could lead to a gradual decline in overall academic performance across the education system.
You're a parent and wanted schools to reopen a lot sooner than they did after COVID shutdowns, or think maybe your kid is getting a bad education, partly because it's nearly impossible to fire a lousy teacher? Yeah, you're going to say, congratulations, teachers, you got yourself a good lawyer. The Democratic Party's always got your back, 100%. But I've noticed my kid is kind of an idiot. So I may be looking for new
Parents have also raised concerns about how difficult it can be to remove ineffective teachers from the school system. Some believe strong protections make accountability extremely difficult, even when performance clearly falls short. This has created a wider debate about how education policies and labor protections affect the quality of learning in public schools.
President Biden wants to cancel hundreds of billions of dollars in student debt. Okay, but the poorer two-thirds of American kids who don't get a college degree are going to say, why should the people who didn't go to college and make less money subsidize the people who did go and make more? You want me to chip in so some liberal arts college can build a bigger rock wall? You're not my lawyer.
Others say the long-term effects of recent education reforms are still unfolding. Critics argue that some changes designed to help struggling students may have lowered expectations overall. Supporters say the goal is equal opportunity, while critics worry that fewer students are being challenged to reach their full potential in the classroom.
Basic income probably sounds pretty good to a lot of people struggling without a college degree. And a number of cities have been running pilot programs in guaranteed income. But the West Hollywood program had to be suspended because it was unconstitutional. They set up a program where 25 residents were to get $1,000 for 18 months, but only if you identified as LGBT, the rest of that. Why? Because they need money more than any other people? Because no one in West Hollywood will hire a gay person?
Student loan debt has also become a major political issue. Supporters of loan forgiveness argue that it would relieve a heavy burden for millions of borrowers struggling with repayment. Critics respond that many students knowingly took out those loans and understood they would eventually need to repay them. From their perspective, canceling large amounts of debt could weaken the principle of personal financial responsibility.
2020, Bernie Sanders said he would legalize marijuana on his first day as president, but that the business of selling pot would be awarded first to those who suffered most from the drug war. And you know what? I can't argue with that instinct. The drug war has been a horrendous instrument of prejudice and punishment for
the imposition of gender-neutral labels like lating serves as a primary example of this cultural friction, despite being rejected by the country's oldest Latino civil rights groups and despised in consistent polling. High-profile figures like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez continue to defend its use. The justification that language is fluid fails to acknowledge a deeper truth. Voters are also fluid. This ideological gap is translating into tangible electoral consequences. In heavily Latino districts along the southern border, areas that have voted Democratic for generations are flipping to the Republican Party. The post-election postmortems from losing campaigns often reveal a startling lack of self-awareness. It is not a matter of messaging alone. It is a matter of advocacy. Voters are signaling that they want a representative who acts as their lawyer. The shift extends beyond one demographic. Support among Asian Americans for the Democratic establishment has seen a significant decline, largely driven by education policy. In the pursuit of equity, several deep blue cities have targeted advanced academic programs where Asian students historically excel by dismantling meritocratic systems. Policymakers have forced parents to choose between partisan loyalty and their children's future. The education debate is further complicated by the erosion of accountability within the public school system. Parents who pushed for earlier school reopenings or sought to address falling standards found themselves at odds with powerful labor interests. There is a growing perception that the political establishment has become the lawyer for the teachers' unions, while the students and their resulting academic performance are left as an afterthought. Economic grievances are also fueling this populist realignment. Proposals to cancel student debt are often framed as a middle-class lifeline, yet they raise fundamental questions of fairness. The two-thirds of Americans without a college degree are increasingly asking why they should subsidize the potential earnings of those who attended expensive institutions. This sense of being forced to pay for a system that does not benefit them is creating a deep-seated resentment. Even well-intentioned social experiments, such as guaranteed income programs, are stumbling over the hurdles of identity politics. When programs are designed with specific identity quotas rather than universal need, they often face legal and constitutional challenges. These initiatives frequently fail to address the core economic issues, instead focusing on narrow categories that do not reflect the broad struggles of the community. The recurring theme across these issues is a failure of representation. When political power becomes obsessed with redressing the past through linguistic shifts and equity mandates, it loses sight of the future. The working class is not a monolith to be managed by slogans. It is a collection of individuals seeking opportunity, safety, and meritocracy. Those who ignore these fundamental desires do so at their own political peril. Ultimately, the current political volatility suggests that no party can afford to take its base for granted. Skepticism toward concentrated power and a demand for reason are beginning to override traditional partisan branding. If representation continues to feel like a performance rather than a service, the fluidity of the American voter will continue to reshape the map.